Más allá de los números fríos que se han discutido en esta sala.
First of all, I want to express our gratitude to the government of the Federative Republic of Brazil and to President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva for their hospitality and for the effort to make Belém do Pará the summit of truth. Enough hypocrisy, enough empty technicalities, enough diplomacy that postpones urgent decisions while the planet burns. What is needed is real commitment, concrete action, and revolutionary changes to the global system before our species disappears, as Commander Fidel Castro Ruz warned in 1992 at the Rio de Janeiro conference. Today, 3 decades after that warning, we are not facing a future threat. We are living the environmental collapse in the present. We no longer talk about a specific increase in global average temperature. We are on the threshold that would end life as we know it. And that is, in itself, a collective failure of the international system. Beyond the cold numbers that have been discussed in this room, the effects are plain to see: melting, desertification, loss of fertile soil, heat and cold waves, forest fires that devour millions of hectares of jungle and life, torrential rains and hurricanes that threaten communities in the Caribbean, the Amazon, Africa, and the Pacific. All this has one cause: the savage capitalist model, a voracious imperialism hungry for oil and resources, which instead of correcting itself to stop climate change, has become more ferocious and inhuman. That imperialism does not send ships to the Caribbean to help repair the damage from climate change, but to threaten, besiege, and plunder the natural resources of our sovereign nations. There is the case of Venezuela, besieged daily with the sole objective of stealing its resources. The most deadly power on the planet has threatened the peace zone of our Latin America with the sole objective of looting our oil. The great transnational corporations act today as parallel powers that violate international law and occupy sovereign territories with total impunity. There is the case of ExxonMobil, which operates illegally in a sea that has not been delimited, exploiting resources that do not belong to it, without any respect for sovereignty or international justice. That is not investment or development. That is looting and violation of international law, threatening to increase political, social, and climatic chaos in the region, with the complicity of a member state of this conference. Mr. President, the discourse of the energy transition promoted by the Western powers is a farce. It is not a transition toward sustainability, but toward a new form of domination. A transition that concentrates technological control and excludes the countries of the global south, that strips them of their knowledge, their energy sovereignty, and their right to development. Because in reality, this transition does not consume less energy, but more. The global energy balance today is more negative than a decade ago. Each unit of energy produced under this new model requires more fossil energy than before. And at the same time, sanctions and technological restrictions are imposed on countries that do not submit to this scheme of dependence. That is not climate justice. That is energy neocolonialism. And if we add to this the manipulation of the international financial system, where funds for climate change mitigation never reach the peoples who need them most, then we must say it clearly: multilateral environmental policy has failed. Since the Stockholm Conference in 1972, through Kyoto, Rio, and Paris, dozens of declarations, early warnings, promises, and commitments have accumulated. But while the documents multiply, the commitments go unfulfilled. Today we have a world with more poverty, more inequality, more war, and more concentration of power. And all these wars, from the Middle East to the threats to our Caribbean, have a common denominator: natural resources. Because oil remains the vital source of capitalism, and that is why they defend it with weapons, sanctions, and blockades. Venezuela has resisted the siege but has not renounced solidarity. When the peoples of the Caribbean, such as Jamaica and Cuba, were recently hit by hurricanes, there was Venezuela, together with the rest of the ALBA countries, offering humanitarian aid and reconstruction support. We did so through Petrocurub, an initiative of integration and energy justice that was attacked by imperial sanctions precisely because it represented an alternative, supportive, and sovereign model. Venezuela defends an inclusive, ecological, and supportive social model, where the human being is the center of action and not a commodity. A model that places the well-being and survival of humanity above corporate profit. A model where development goes hand in hand with the preservation of the natural environment and where the right of each people to decide how to manage their resources is respected. As Bolivarians, we defend life and the balance of the universe. 2 centuries ago, the liberator Simon Bolivar issued the Decree of Chuquisaca, protecting mountains, rivers, and forests, anticipating the principle of environmental sovereignty that we vindicate today. That legacy guides us. Protecting nature is not a symbolic gesture. It is a patriotic and moral duty. Today, from Venezuela, We call on the world to build a true energy transition that is just, sovereign, and humane. Venezuela believes in a sovereign, just, and supportive energy transition. It believes in South-South cooperation, in open science, in agroecology, in the sustainable management of natural resources, and in real multilateralism, not subordinated to corporate power. We are going to join efforts to decolonize the economy, technology, and energy, to replace predatory capitalism with a new system based on cooperation, solidarity, and climate justice. I want to close this speech by quoting our commander Hugo Chavez Frias, who at the Copenhagen summit in 2009 said, "Let us be capable of making this earth not the tomb of humanity. Let us make this earth a heaven of life, of peace, and of brotherhood for all humanity, for the human species." Thank you very much.
Ese legado nos guía.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.